I don't know if you noticed, but in the second half of the last episode, our tracks were slightly out of sync.
Yeah, guys, that's the issue with this tool. I mean, I realized that, and I was, do I want to go and re-edit the second half and have to and it's a drift, so it's a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
I remember having to do that with
me too. Like on our
Nation.
First 2 seasons of layovers. Did we have seasons? First 2 years of layovers. I had to do this, and this time I didn't want. So sorry, guys. There was a little drift, and it could happen this time again. It's either the tool or one of our broadband. Usually, it should be working fine, but I'm sure you're all smart enough to have realized that it's not because one of us. I don't remember who was drifting more. It's not because one of us is not intelligent, didn't laugh at the joke of the other. It's just because it was a drift.
I think it was almost like one of us was predicting what the other one would say and react.
That's probably you, actually. You're the smarter of us.
Oh, please.
How are you, buddy?
Yeah, good. What a day. What a day all around.
Oh, my God, what a week, actually. So, guys, we were supposed to record yesterday. We would have been live when Boris Johnson was basically getting the F out. I mean, he's not. He's clinging. He is, but he's not. We don't know. Anyway, this is not a show about politics, but of course we live in the UK, so we've been having I was about to ask you yesterday yesterday would have been the Thursday, so today we're the 8th of July. I was about to ask you if you had resigned from government because there were so many resignations. Now I'm going to ask you, are you actually putting your name up to become our next prime minister?
Well, Greg and I have decided that it's going to be determined by a Willy Wonka-esque golden ticket that will be available in packets of crisps, Monster Munch, pickled onion flavor only. And if you're the lucky winner, then you get to be prime minister.
You guys, all of you can do that. You can all participate, all the audience here. These guys, man, the audience has been... I don't know where we're going with this episode. Let me play the usual little sound.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yeah, we need a lot of good luck today. I don't know where I'm going. We don't know where we're going with this episode because, first of all, we were supposed to record yesterday. We both had issues. I mean, you ended up not having a goddamn version, as you said. We were supposed to have issues with our broadband because I have engineers working on my fiber line because the subcontractor that put the line didn't put it where it's supposed to be, so the whole schematics of my line is wrong. So they are tracing it by hand. So I told them today, do not come before 2 p.m. So it's 12. So we have 2 hours to record, to basically interrupt my line and trace. And we were supposed also to have engineer work on your Virgin line. So that's why we ended up not recording. But thank you so much for finding the time because, you're about to leave to the US. So it's
I'm about to leave on Monday.
On Monday.
Managed to avoid the strikes and the cancellations so far.
That's what I was about working to go to. So I had this plan in my head in the end of the last episode. I'm going to talk about Pakistan and my trip and everything. To be honest, I don't think I will. Let's see where we go with this episode because I will need a good chunk of time. But the chaos, it's the 70s basically. We have strikes, we have inflation, there's a war, there's political assassination. I mean, we're very sorry to hear about the death of
that was tragic.
Abe this morning. Actually, I woke up completely by coincidence at 4:30 a.m. Probably my cat was waking me up, but I didn't realize. And I couldn't fall back asleep, and that's the first thing I saw just at the moment it happened. So yeah, it's not fun. So we're recording actually to the 8th of July, 1970, guys. This is we're back in. And yeah, so we had a lot of. I mean, I think every single one of our audience member, hi guys, has been experiencing chaos and delays and cancellations and crazy stories. I have received, and I've probably missed so many because again, we're receiving so many. Only stories about that. So I think there's no other way to start this show than to talk about chaos. And also because, and we'll get to that after I play the song for Again Can I, it's also because we sent our special envoy, Alex Hunter, to actually experiment the world of chaos. He's shaking his head. I was privy to what happened to him last week, and I think we cannot not just start with that. So let's play the music. So Gen actually sent us a message. Thank you for always playing the intro music. Again, you're a forever part of our show now, so here's the music again for you. And guys, if you don't know Gen Kanai, you should. He's an amazing guy. One of my good friends. Used to live in Japan, China. Is he? I think he's Japan again. I'm not sure again where you are in the world. So, Alex, let's start directly with that. The travel investigator of chaos in the 70s. What happened to you?
Man, well, I'm going to preface it by saying this was the single worst experience in terms of disruption and service that I've ever experienced, which is, I'm reasonably well traveled, so it's quite a statement. So Megan and I went to Valencia after doing some work in Madrid, and I just fell in love with that place almost immediately. And it's the first place I've ever been to where I've said, I must come back here and film an episode, like right immediately, because it would make a great episode. And so I got in touch with Greg, and very quickly we carved out some dates just 2 weeks later. It was helpful because I was able to have it fresh in my memory. Greg was going to go ahead of time because our dates didn't sync up quite enough for us to spend the entire trip together like we usually do. But I was able to give him a bunch of Google Maps references saying, go here and film, this is beautiful, go around this corner when you need a beer, go here, here, and here. The market, it's just such a picturesque, film-ready city. And I knew he would be able to bring it to life. And places I knew I wanted to capture and speak about when I got there. So he went on Wednesday, on the Wednesday morning, very early on BA. No problems, no disruption, smooth sailing on calm seas. And I was
basically, you flew directly from Australia to Valencia, right?
Oh man, I want him to record a little soundbite or WhatsApp message, and because that was the first thing when I eventually got to Valencia. And we'd had a bro hug and we're having a cup of coffee, and I was like, okay, tell me everything about that trip. And of course it was fascinating, and from a non-AV geek perspective to hear it as well, and then for me to filter it through that whole thing. So maybe I'll ask him to do that because it was really interesting.
Yeah, or we should invite him one of these days.
Yeah, he's a busy man these days, but I know that he would give us 5 minutes of his very valuable time. And we've done this before where I've arrived a little bit later or arrived a little bit sooner than him and recorded episodes. Works fine. We have it down to an art. This is our 49th city guide. I had opted to take a Vueling flight from Gatwick on the Thursday via Barcelona because that was really the only available routing.
I was about to say, are you sure Vueling?
Yeah, you did tell me that. You did tell me that. You said, I can't remember specifically what you said, but it was basically in your typically polite, diplomatic manner, you're doomed.
Are you sure? Yeah.
I think it was. I think you said something very, again, like polite. You said something like, I've never really had a great experience with them. Yeah, it was very diplomatic and neutral. But I thought, okay, well, how bad can it be? Oh boy. So the flight was at 12:55 on the Thursday, and I was due to get into Valencia via Barcelona at about 6 in the evening, and Greg and I would have been able to do a little bit of filming, have dinner, crush the next day of filming, and he was due to fly back. And actually, we were both due to fly back Friday night. So more than enough time to capture a small city with him having done already a day and a half worth of B-roll. I wasn't sure what to expect when I arrived at the South Terminal at Gatwick. But I was not expecting a refugee processing center. And I mean that in a very specific way, in that it was chaos. It was dilapidated. It was loud. Wow. I had purchased a Vueling ticket that included priority security and a few other things like
nice.
I think it comes with a certain either fare that then allows you to pick the seat for free, which you would otherwise have to pay for, and things like priority check-in and fast track security because there's no status, even though they're fully owned by IAG.
Yeah, but I think they're a separate operation.
They're
to the point, I think that
completely separate.
there were some stories, maybe guys, you can illuminate us, that if you were to fly on Vueling, even though you were booked Iberia, there sometimes the points were not counting and stuff like that. So it's not,
Yes,
it's a bit
and
of a
there's
strange,
no reciprocity on status or anything like that. So, and I think I knew that going in, which is why I purchased that particular fare. When I got to the South Terminal, for those of you that can picture this entrance to security in the South Terminal, right next to it is the premium, I think they call it, security line. Not only was the security line all of the way out of the tents and barriers they have inside of security, it was all the way out through to the check-in areas. Times 4.
What?
There were 4 separate sets of queues, because if they didn't, they would have the queue would have wrapped around the terminal or outside. I mean, I think many of you will have seen some footage from the news recently.
if you're in the UK, at Gatwick, it's...
Yeah, at Gatwick and Manchester, Belfast, I think, has also experienced this. And I looked, and because you couldn't tell where the premium queue was and all these other 4 queues, it was very confusing. People were generally pretty chill, all things considered, because I think they'd been expecting this ridiculousn's.
Yeah, it's front page of the news pretty much every day.
It's everywhere. It's not just Gatwick. It's not just Heathrow. It's basically every
UK,
airport.
it's Europe. I mean, again, we'll talk about it afterwards, but the listeners, thank you for all this. It's like Europe, North America, mostly. I haven't received a lot in Asia or Africa or Latin America, but North America for sure, and Europe for sure.
We'll talk about it. The line for the premium was maybe 6 or 7 people deep. They made the mistake, in my opinion, of selling premium access at the same time as they were checking whether you had a valid pass to go in. So there were people who were queuing who had, like me, the little notch on their Apple Wallet boarding pass that said that you had access to Fast Track. They just glance at it and send you through. And then there are other people who wanted to pay. That takes boarding pass validation, payment processing. Seemed a bit silly given the circumstances to just say, we're not selling right now. You either have to go online and book it and come back, or just get in the queue. Once through, though, I only had maybe 2 or 3 people in front of me. We've talked about this in the past, but in the normal times, security at Gatwick South is very efficient. They have
it is.
They queue people up at individual points on the security belt. So you've got people waiting. The trays come automatically. They come quickly. They're taken from you quickly. There's multiple points at which you can deposit your things onto the belt. Yeah, and I didn't have to wait very long to get through, and that was fine. Once you're through to the other side with everybody else, chaos. And you go down through, again, for those of you that remember Gatwick South Terminal, you go down through the duty-free like every airport.
I will say, sorry to interrupt, because I've used that when I was going to Bastia, which actually I could tell the story later. I don't know. And it seems to me that, or maybe it's just because I have a bad memory, that duty-free section is longer than it used to be. There's like 2 more corners. It feels that before you splashed out into that very big departure area.
Atrium, yeah.
I think it's bigger, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone who works at Gatwick can tell. But
I think you might be right, because you do come out and you wander through, and people are coming back. It's just chaotic, and then you're out into the main atrium area that you just referenced, and it was like nothing I had ever seen. And I'm not using the refugee processing center in any kind of disparaging way. It just had that things were boarded up. There were people lying everywhere because their flights had been canceled or delayed. I would say that 3/4 of the eateries were closed either temporarily or permanently.
Oh, wow.
And those that were open had queues of maybe 100 people.
Oh, yeah, actually, I do remember. But because there was less people when I went to Bastia, actually, it didn't click because there were not so many queues. So I didn't really realize the ones that were closed. But oh wow!
Yeah, so the McDonald's that was just churn people through quickly and boarded up.
Wow.
The Pret that's right next to it on the top part, I mean, there must have been 100 and something people in the queue to try and get out. The restaurants, the kind of fast casual restaurants, sports bar type places had waiting times of an hour and a half. They had the Weatherspoons. There's another one, I think, Grain something. Yeah. The waiting lists were an hour and a half. There are 4 lounges. There are 4 lounges in the South Terminal. Yeah. All but one of them was closed.
The number 1 was open, or which one?
The number 1 was open, and I was like, brilliant, I can get in there with my priority pass. There was a sign at the entrance saying, we have reached our maximum capacity. We are only taking pre-booked reservations. Please scan this QR code to join the queue. And they use this app called Walk Up, which I've used at restaurants.
Oh, so a virtual queue.
Virtual queue, which is a very sensible way of doing it. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what, that's fine. I'll try that and just jump in the queue. I was 39th in the queue. And just to kind of tie off that thread, I got the text message that I had reached the front of the queue and I could go into the lounge 3 hours after my flight was supposed to leave. So useless.
Oh my God. I guess they don't have a limit of 3 hours per person then, like you mentioned last time.
I guess not. I actually don't know how they were doing check-ins. And I mean, they do check-ins, but I don't know if they were doing check-outs. I think it was just a visual thing. But they were very polite about it.
Of course.
I went to the BA lounge to see if I could get in somehow. And the woman was, again, very polite and said, if you booked on BA and the flight is operated by Vueling, yes. And so she scanned my boarding pass and she's like, I'm really sorry, but this ticket is, I was like, no, it's fine. Whatever.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think I went and found myself a cheese sandwich at WH Smith and just sat down and ate it. And eventually the gate was called for my Barcelona flight, which was on that long.
We need to mention that you were not flying direct.
No, I wasn't flying. There was no availability because BA had canceled the flights for that day. Obviously, they'd operated them the day before because Greg went on him, bastard. So I had to find this routing via Barcelona, and it was fine. It was going to get me in at a reasonable time, no problem. So I went down to the gate, which was on that long pier. Yeah, I think it's like 1 through or 10 through 20. I think the gates are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there was the airplane, and they were basically scanning people into the boarding areas like they do at Gatwick. You go into this sort of holding pen. And I think I was maybe the 4th or 5th person there. And I had sat down, and no more than 2 or 3 minutes later, they said, okay, just go on board, which is fine. It was great, actually. I had seat 1F. Aye. So I was at the bulkhead. And there was a gentleman sat in 2F when I boarded, and maybe 7 or 8 other people on the plane by the time I got on. And then they stopped boarding all of a sudden. There were people coming up to the aircraft door, and I believe the flight attendant said, you need to stop there. And I was like, that's weird. Okay. At that moment, the guy behind me goes, that's weird. And looks out, and we both look out the window, and there's a fire crew racing up to the side of the airplane.
Oh my God.
Full fire truck, and then like a fire SUV, 2 or 3 Gatwick operations service vehicles. And I turned to this guy behind me, and I was like, that's not a good sign. They didn't look particularly like, they didn't come out with hoses, but it did.
Yeah.
It was a bit worrying, and I thought, okay, well, then maybe that's why they've stopped. And there were 3 or 4 people looking up at the bottom of the wing with the fuel truck, and that's when I started to think, I don't know if we should be on this plane right now, because they tried to connect the fuel hose to the wing and then turn it on, and jet fuel went everywhere. It just sort of fountained all over the tarmac. And so then what they had to do was make sure that it was safe. Jet fuel is very hard to ignite.
Yeah, of course, but still.
So they moved everything away. Then they have to do a full cleanup. When you're at a gas station or petrol station, somebody's done it. They use like basically it's cat litter, really, because it just sucks it all up.
Yeah.
But you can't leave it there because it'll go into the engine once the engine turns on. So they bring over a street sweeper to sweep it all up.
And here I thought that Vueling was not providing IFE. Actually, that's entertainment.
That's exactly what I said to the guy behind me. I'm like, this is arm's length entertainment. And we're waiting, and their passengers have been sent. The passengers that were queuing on the jet bridge have been sent back to the gate. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to bring to get the fuel nozzle connected safely. They try, and there's people like scraping things out of the connector valve on the wing, and I thought if they break
the
that,
MacGyver song starts at that point.
Yeah, like I was like duct tape and Velcro and silly putty and all of that. And the captain is doing a good job of trying to tell us. He's going down to the tarmac and looking and talking to the fuelers and the operations people, because obviously he wants to know that he's going to be able to make a safe choice about whether this plane can operate. Eventually, they try a new fuel truck, and it looks like they've been reasonably successful, but they can't spare the fuel truck because it's got to go and fuel other airplanes, and nobody's on board the airplane yet. So the guy comes up, the ops manager for Vueling comes up and said, "Okay, Captain, I think we've got this sorted out. We can start boarding again." And then one of the people that was trying to fix the fuel situation comes up and goes, "Yeah, we've solved it, but did you know that you've got a slide deployed on the left side of the airplane?"
What?
And you could see the captain go, "Yeah, we just got the alert on the flight deck too."
Oh,
and so at that point, they said, "Okay, guys, you need to get off." And there really was only 10 of us on board at this point.
Yeah.
And so we all get off.
But did you hear the slide go off?
No, that's the crazy thing. I don't even think I would know what it would sound like because the door wasn't open. It had just deployed from the they come out from just underneath the door itself. Yeah.
But was it? So do you think was it an accidental release or something?
It was an accidental release, and they think that somebody had knocked it. But that's not an easy thing to fix. It's $15,000 a deployment, and it takes time. So they said, "All right, everybody get off." And this is where it started to get a little bit ridiculous, because I'm of course thinking at this point I only have an hour and 10-minute connection in Barcelona, and we should have taken off 20 minutes ago. So, and I'm already looking at how am I going to get down to Valencia. We get off and they put us back in the pen, and by that point it's rammed full of people. It's got 145 people. The flight was completely full, and Vueling is a contractor at Gatwick, so there's no Vueling staff. And the people that were assigned to this flight were the rudest, most unhelpful people I have ever come across in my life in this arena. Wow. They didn't tell anybody anything. They said that they needed to fix the airplane. People had connections. The guy who was sitting behind me was trying to get to Barcelona for a meeting. And eventually they said, after maybe 45 minutes to an hour in the pen, "You have to go back to the main concourse now because we don't know how long this is going to take to fix." And people had been coming in and out, and they would take your passport from you because they'd already scanned you onto the flight. So to go out and use the restroom or to get a sandwich from a vending machine, you had to surrender your passport and boarding pass.
It happened to me once in Warsaw, I think. I remember, because you're already checked in, like fully checked in, so you're not supposed to leave.
You are boarded in the eyes.
Yeah, boarded. Yeah, sorry, boarded, not checked in. Yeah, wow. Ooh.
And there were young families. There was an Australian couple with a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old, and I'll come back to them because they feature through this sad story. And we all just sort of groaned, okay, well, I'm not getting on my flight from Barcelona to Valencia. So go out to the main concourse, and they said, okay, we'll be in touch. And again, this is after about an hour of not really getting any answers. So we go out back into this concourse, which is devoid of any members of staff from any airline. There's a bank of ticketing desks on the bottom floor, unmanned, not a soul there. So no information was coming. this guy that sat behind me, his name's Dan Garrett. Dan, if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Yeah. Thank you, man, because he's also been, I mean, you'll tell the story, but he's been interacting with us on Twitter. It's
so
Dan Garrett.
There was maybe like 4 or 5 of us. We'd all started to bond over this already absurd situation we had collectively found ourselves in. There was maybe 7 or 8 of us who were in the same situation and sat near each other and just started talking. He's on his phone trying to figure out his situation. He's got Expert Flyer up. And I was like, oh, a fellow nerd. Like, Expert Flyer is great. And so we start talking. Turns out that he's a listener of Layovers. And he's like, I said, oh, this is fun for me because I have an aviation podcast and this is like a whole episode. And he's like, oh, I listen. Which one are you? And I said, oh, it's called Layovers. He's like, oh my God. So we start trading stories, and I booked a train from Barcelona down to Valencia at like 8:45 at night as a backup plan because there was no flights. I started looking at that. I know relatively what I'm doing. Yeah. I know all of the realities of the situation. I know how to make plan A and plan B and plan C.
That's always been the case for us, even before this disruption. When we had a disruption, we kind of seasoned. I don't know if that's the right term, but
no, you're right. And we can also read the room and go, this isn't going to. We're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I remember asking you actually because Alex has been. I don't know all the details, but he's been sending me a picture of the slide open on the side of the aircraft, and I was like. So what now? What do they do? Do they wrap it up inside the plane? Do they actually cut it off and leave it on the ground on the apron? Do they replace it? Because all the solutions there, none of them is rapid, and I'm not even sure if what is actually possible to do. I mean, you'll probably explain, but
well, no, you're right. I think
I don't know.
That was the questions that because we all went and looked at the deployed slide after we were told to leave the boarding area because. You don't see that every day. And we watched them while for the hour while we were in the pen, futzing for a little bit with the fuel thing, but no one was really doing anything. There was a set of stairs deployed. Okay. So while we're all back on the main concourse, there's a guy that was, he worked at a hospital in Orlando.
Yeah.
He was trying to get to Mallorca for a friend's wedding.
Oh.
He had got up at 4 o'clock that morning, gone to the gym, worked a shift at the hospital until 2:30 in the afternoon, then gone to Orlando, taken the BA flight to Gatwick, the red eye, and now was trying to go to Barcelona to then on to Mallorca.
Poor guy.
Yeah, and then this Australian family who were unbelievably chipper. The kids were fantastic. I just admired them so much. And a few other people who were trying to plan their next moves. Dan and I knew what our options were. We knew we could plan things. We made sure we booked in the right fare buckets to make sure that it was fully cancelable if we didn't end up needing to take the flight.
And arguably, even though that wasn't a solution for you at that point, you have status on some airlines because we can also help sometimes getting fast track solutions to some stuff, right?
Yes, exactly. And we were all trying to help each other because Google Flights, tends to have a little bit of a delay on inventory. Mm-hmm. So they were looking at flights to these places they were trying to go to from other terminals or other airports. And even this chap from Orlando was like, how easy would it be for me to get to Luton?
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
the other side of
Dan and I just
man.
kind of shook our heads. Like, not going to happen, man.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the middle of nowhere here, but no one knew. So we were sitting checking Expert Flyer and going straight to websites and going, look, there's a flight here that you might be able to take. And then, of course, none of them knew about EU 261 either.
Yeah. They don't advertise it here anymore because we're not in the EU. The law is still in place. The law would be in place anyway because you're flying to or from the EU. But there's no more, I think, maybe I'm wrong and maybe somebody will tell me wrong, but I think they don't have to advertise it on the desks and everything. They used to have, I mean, if you go to Europe, there's a mandate, they have to tell you your rights. Either they flash it on the big screen or they have like leaflets or like some poster, but I don't think they do it anymore in the UK.
No, so we were trying to tell, especially folks from out of town, this Australian couple, and they were delighted. They're like, "Well, this is going to pay for like most of our trip." It's because we're all waiting for it to hit the 3-hour mark when that compensation kicks in, and saying like, keep your receipts, keep
everything.
keep everything, because it's the law. And then eventually we found a stack of brochures which outlined the EU 261 and websites, and so they were all like, okay, well, great. Meanwhile, we have no information. Nothing. All the board shows is that our flight has closed. All the app shows is that the flight has closed and it's on time. We asked a Gatwick employee who was very sympathetic to our situation, but said, came back to us maybe once every 45 minutes saying, I can't find anybody. Eventually, I said, you know what, guys, stay here. I'm going to walk back down to the gate and see what the status is.
Yeah.
So I walked down to the gate, and the slide is no longer there. I don't know where it is, whether it's been...
Somebody came with a pair of scissors and just snatched
probably. Well, actually, that is what happened.
Oh.
That is essentially what happened. And there's people milling around, maybe 25, 30 people from our flight. They won't let them into the pan area. There's Vueling people. And as I was about to go back and tell everybody, hey, I think there's movement. And this is probably 2.5 hours after we were all removed from the flight. They started to come back, these people that I'd been hanging out with in the departure area. And I was like, oh, you guys have come back. Have they said anything? And they said no, but we just felt like it came back. And of course, then maybe 15 minutes later, they said, this is where it gets weird. They said, and this really surly, unfriendly, rude man came out and said, okay, listen up, everybody trying to get to Barcelona. Anybody in rows 14 to 20 and I think 28 to 36.
Yeah, of course.
Go over to this next gate. And of course, he's just shouting over the din of Gatwick departures, so no one can hear him. Eventually, they say that we cannot accommodate a full flight because we have an emergency exit that is no longer usable.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's X number of people. You need X number of emergency exits per X number of people.
Yeah.
And they obviously weren't able to do that. Only a few of us heard that part of the announcement. The people that had been shunted over to this other gate did not know what was about to be told to them, which is, you're not going on this flight.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You're not leaving.
And that's not a small amount of people if you think about the amount of rows that I've just described. The rest of us go through into the holding area.
I remember, sorry to interrupt, I remember that at that point when you were, because again, Alex was live telling me all this stuff. At that point, you didn't know, because they were like, they put some people aside, but which group would be actually chosen to fly? Because at some point there was like, maybe actually it's the other group that will leave. And we were not the chosen ones.
We were taking bets on whether we were the lucky ones or the unlucky ones. And because they had put us into the gate that the plane was attached to, we were a little bit more optimistic.
Of course, yeah.
But we also thought, some people were saying, I don't know if I want to fly on this airplane if it's got a fuel issue, a deployed slide. And we thought, because they had initially said, it won't be a massive delay because we have a small base at Gatwick. It won't be that difficult to find another airplane. And we thought, those people in the other gate, they're getting a new plane and they're going to probably go before us.
Yeah. Lucky bee.
Yeah. Eventually, they put us back on the airplane. And I'm looking at my options going, I think maybe I can make this, I can make that train down. And then after a while, I was like, no, I'm not. Megan managed to find me a hotel in Barcelona right next to the station, which I could take a really early train the next morning, get down to Valencia in time to at least have a day's worth of filming. But that, I'd basically written off the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll just stay in Barcelona.
You still didn't know at that point if you could fly or not with that one. What do you think?
No, at that point, we had creeped up, and I thought, by the time I get through immigration in Barcelona, get across town to the train station, it's going to be past 8:40 p.m. when that train left. So I just said,
no. I meant you didn't know if you were able to fly at all or not. So if that
no, we were on the plane, so I thought, okay, at least we're going somewhere now.
Oh, okay.
So they boarded us. We all sat down in our original seats.
Good.
Minus the however many people that weren't. And
when the music stops, people who are not seated are not in the flight.
Yeah. And we all get settled and everything like that. And then the captain comes out and says, I'm really sorry, everybody, but you all need to get off again.
Oh,
because we've maxed out our crew hours.
Of course.
And the poor captain just looked
disheveled.
Fried. He just looked so done with it. Like, are you kidding me right now? And it was interesting to watch the way people reacted. Some people, there was a gentleman in 1C who was just a turbo douche. And he was the only person in the universe. He was, what do they call it? Main character syndrome.
Yeah.
And was rude and like, it's not going to solve anything.
Yeah,
the captain is he can't do anything about it.
And a lot of it here is not to the fault of
anyone.
Anyone.
It was bad, and so we got off the plane, and Dan made a point of saying to the captain, "It's really not a problem. I hope you can get somewhere. I hope you can get home."
Yeah.
And we all went back into the pen, and that's where tempers were starting to fray because there was no information. The same guy was there, just being incredibly rude and impatient, and I mean rude to the point of being combative. And they said they're going to fly down a new crew to fly you to Barcelona. The crew will be coming from Barcelona. And I'm looking at my watch going, well, that's 2 and a bit hours, at least.
Yeah.
To fly the crew in. And by that point, I said to the guys who were all the best friends at this point, I give up. I can't. This doesn't make any sense for me. I can't get there. If by the time I do get there, I'm not going to have much time to sleep, and then to get this early train, I'm going to book a hotel in Gatwick, and then I'm going to book myself on the early morning Easyjet flight the next day.
The one, the 4 or something, the 5 a.m.
It was a 6 a.m. direct
6 a.m.
Valencia, and they said, "Yeah, no, I completely understand." Meanwhile, to get airside. Because I'd looked at flights when we were all back in departure. I was like, oh, there's an Easyjet flight. I couldn't find anybody to escort me landside.
Yeah. God, Mr.
So even if there was a flight to Barcelona and a flight to Valencia that were going from the North Terminal on Easyjet.
Well, you need to go there, yeah.
I couldn't get out of the airside in the South Terminal.
Oh,
and so to get all of us that had opted not to hang around, they said, if you want to leave, they put us in with the people in those doomed rows in the gate next. And they had just told them, you are going nowhere tonight. Go back to check-in. Go all the way back through immigration and to check-in and go to Zone C. Okay, well, these people who didn't really know what to do. What do we do when we get there? They'll figure it out. Just go to Zone C.
Yeah, it's always like somebody else's problem.
Somebody else's problem. And they didn't know where to go. These poor people were really confused because you're dumped out in a very strange part of the airport to try and get to immigration. So I just said, follow me. I'll show you. I pointed them in the right direction. I'll pause there for a second because I eventually made it to Valencia on Easyjet the next morning, 6:20 a.m., brand new Neo. It left on time. It got me there on time. We filmed the episode. No problems. It was great. Well done, Easyjet. Meanwhile, Dan had opted to stick around.
Yeah, I know.
And I was getting these text messages from Vueling saying, we're really sorry. We've put £7 on your boarding pass for food and drink.
7?
Have you been to an airport lately?
Yeah, 7. What do you get for 7?
You get not a lot.
No.
And the hotel I stayed in was the only one anywhere near Gatwick. I got one of the last rooms at the Block Hotel, which is inside the terminal.
Oh, I've never been to. Okay. Yeah.
It's one of those capsule type deals.
Oh, yeah.
No windows or anything like that. And it was 270 pounds.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because there was no other inventory as well. So obviously kept my receipt for that. Dan eventually got to Barcelona at 3 a.m.
With Vueling.
With Vueling on that airplane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That would have been what? What time were you supposed to leave?
12:55. So the flight was 12 hours late.
Oh, dear God.
Eventually. So they flew somebody down, or a full crew down.
Yeah.
And they were apparently continued to be unbelievably bad and rude, and not Vueling in flight. From what I gather, they were fine, but they didn't leave until midnight. Then they kicked people off again. Yeah.
Do you think it's because they didn't have enough crew? Because there's also a number of crew per passenger ratio, whatever.
I really
maybe they only flew. Maybe they only flew like a set of pilot and maybe one or two flight attendants. That limits the number of people that can, because the assistants, again, for emergency purposes. I think there's I'll come to that because there's a story about that on Easyjet. But yeah, I don't know. Wow.
It was so bad. And
imagine having to wait like 12 hours plus and then being told, because you've been told that you're basically going to fly because they're getting you a crew for you. And, actually, you know what? Yeah, sorry, you're not on this one. Go to the other gate and wait for another fortnight.
12-hour delays. And those poor young families were just said after the 12 hours, oh, wait, no, you can't. You can't come.
No, that's not fair.
It was, Dan seemed like a pretty mellow guy, but, he on Twitter said it was the most disgusting treatment he'd ever had. And that I felt at one point that we were being pranked.
Yeah, I was telling you, what's the name of the show how do you call it in the UK? The Candid Camera, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is, again, you were telling me, the crew, that, and then do the slide. And I was like, really? Are you sure you're not being pranked? Because it's like dominoes of like silliness, but I mean, wow.
It was unbelievable. And he referred to us as being abandoned. And we really, really were. We were just left to our own devices, and they didn't make any announcements in the terminal because they said no one can hear them anyway, so there's no point. It was farcical. And I don't want to take up any more of the show with this.
No, go ahead. I mean, this is the show for this. We'll talk about chaos most of the time, but yeah, it's
I couldn't get over it. I mean, I've been kicked off flights multiple times when I've been standby, when I've been staff.
Okay, that's different.
Even then, I still think about it, and it was like I was 10 years old. This was unprecedented. It was so badly handled, badly managed, apparently. And it's been interesting because we've all well, not all, but a lot of us have connected on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Of course.
And seeing, even just searching for like Gatwick or Vueling on Twitter on the day, you could see people who were on our flight saying, getting autoresponders and saying they weren't able to get through, and they were sent links to forms for compensation that were broken or didn't address things. And then, pulling back a little bit and just looking at Vueling in general, they seem to have some serious operational issues around punctuality, dispatch reliability, and baggage, if Twitter's anything to go by. So it was a nightmarish experience. In the end, I mean, I never lost my temper.
No, but you're not someone like that and you were not insulted either, or even though the guy was combative, probably,
I knew that bitching about it wasn't going to fix the airplane. And also for me, I put my layovers hat on straight away. Once I had made the plans to I didn't want Greg to be waiting around going, where the hell is this guy? So I'd made my plans B, C, and D. I knew I was going to get there eventually, and we would be able to just have to work just a little bit harder than we already do. But for the people who needed to be where they were going, or the people who didn't know what was happening, or were now afraid to fly on the airplane, or didn't know that they were going to get all their money back. You could understand why people's tempers were fraying. You could understand why people were starting to cry, that they were going to miss something significant.
Yeah, a wedding or whatever, like you said. No, and it's the lack of it. I mean, it's of course now because of the chaos, but the lack of information has always been the most frustrating thing ever. And I know I'm going to take a little bit of I'm exaggerating on purpose, but we know that a lot of low-cost airlines, when they work. When the operation works, and when it falls apart for any reason, delay, crew change, whatever, it can fall apart very quickly. And more often than not, you hear, but we didn't get any information. At least get something on the app. But nowadays, it seems, because that's a story I've heard, not yours, because it's really science fiction, but of people being abandoned at their own devices and without having any kind of idea what they should do. Should they wait? Should they get out of the airport? Like you just said, how do I get out of the airport? Because some airports you cannot. It's not like there's so many airports in the world, but our arrivals and departures are next to each other, and you basically exit, and that's it. Yeah. If you've never been to like Gatwick or others, there's a few, like if you want to get out, it's not like just straightforward. You cannot get out on your own.
You cannot get out on your own. You've got to be escorted, and I think that's the lesson that these airlines have got to take away from the last, however long this is going to last. But you can't leave people in the dark. And EasyJet's app
is great.
Is very good.
Yes,
it's very good. Yeah. Vueling's app is horrendous. Although I do, people are always and I talk about this in my speech, my customer service speeches about Virgin America, that people are the most unpredictable components of your experience. And
everything.
My EasyJet experience was great. I don't always have the best relationship with EasyJet, but I tempered my expectations, and they got me there bang on. We actually early. We left bang on time. The plane was new. The crew, both flight deck and cabin, were friendly. The check-in at the gate staff were efficient and knowledgeable. So when a curveball came up with a passport issue or something, they knew exactly what to do. They would take somebody out of the queue to another desk and process them. While I was in the lounge at the North Terminal at 4:00 in the morning waiting for this flight, not really wanting to go into the Sauvignon Blanc like everybody else seemed to be, right. There was a group sat next to me of middle-aged women, 6 of them, and they were going to Coma. Mm-hmm. And they were all really excited. I overheard them say that that it was 2 years in the making. And one of them went off to go get another glass of Sauvignon Blanc and came back ashen-faced and said, they were like, "What's wrong?" She said, "Our flight's been canceled." Mm-hmm. And they didn't know what to do, so they all said, "Oh, where else should we go? Well, let's all do it. We can all chip in and buy tickets to somewhere else instead, and I'll contact the Airbnb." And I was like, Wait. That's not how this works. They have to get you there.
Yeah.
They have to take care of everything.
Yep.
So all of this, any phone calls, save your receipts. And I sat with them for like 45 minutes looking at all the options, but no one at the EasyJet gate had told them any of this. I think they probably would have eventually, but there are a lot of people whose lives are getting a lot more complicated and trips being destroyed, and they're losing a lot of money because they don't understand how the system works. And it was a fascinating and infuriating 24 hours.
Experience, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen this. It's because there's always two sides, of course, of any story, but you feel of all the stories we've read over the news, or many actually that we received, as I told you, I might mention a few from listeners, that there's a bit of obfuscation. What's the term? How do you say that in English? They hide it, as in it's like you remember during the pandemic, and I know airlines needed to survive. I know we have a lot of people working at airlines listening to us, or every time I take one side, I get like hate mail from the other side. That like for instance, BA kind of hiding the fact that you could get reimbursed in cash and that you could only get a voucher, or even like making like dark patterns on the website so you couldn't find easily. We know Ryanair is a specialist in dark patterns on their website, so they were trying to. Some have been more specialized than others, but during the pandemic, they were trying to basically hoard money. So they were even selling you tickets that they knew they wouldn't fly. By the way, this is still happening today. Some airlines are still selling you. They know they won't be able to operate, but they're still selling you. And to your point, I'm sometimes, okay, this is conspiracy theory, but maybe like, you know what, just hold off. Do not tell right away that we're supposed to get them there, because some of them will forget, some of them will find their own way. They'll never ask for refunds or the regulation, and they will get a lesser invoice basically. Yeah. So I know it's maybe unfair. I'm not saying that every airline employee does that. I'm not saying that every airline management or airline itself does that, but it feels like it's like poker faces, Oh yeah, well, let's see if these ladies you just mentioned, they let them go. They go, but they'll never ask. And I know it's a bit. Again, I'm going to get hate mail for that, but it feels like there's a bit of a play, like a chess game on that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get the information, and then they I don't know what to tell you, and it's not going to get better. I mean, we'll get that in a few minutes, but it's not going to get better. And I think at least the information piece, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you get bombarded with information before the flight. Please come early. Please have your documents. Please have your COVID documents. All the stuff depending on the destination. But then when you are actually at the gate or in the departure lounge, wherever, you don't get a lot of stuff.
No,
and people are not there.
And nobody's there. Especially, I mean, an EasyJet's a different story because, Gatwick is Fortress EasyJet, and so they have.
Yeah, but the south, not really, actually.
No, the south, not really, and the north, absolutely. Vueling is not, and they have to rely on these ground handling companies,
which have staff shortages. So that's why I cannot say there's one reason. There's like multiple reasons why we end up in that chaos.
Reasons.
Yeah, but that chaos is kind of adds up.
And I think in many instances, and this is a mantra I learned from my father, is that in many cases, customers will judge you not necessarily on the problem itself, but on how you resolve it.
Of course,
and,
always.
Vueling failed massively. But interestingly, flying back from Valencia, I flew on EasyJet. Greg flew back on BA, Finnair, actually, funnily enough.
Again.
And he got a really sweet upgrade deal in the app, or I actually emailed him, and so he took that and had the same experience. But I boarded the flight back from Valencia to Gatwick. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and sat down, very full flight, and we were waiting, and we pushed back away from the gate and didn't go anywhere. We just parked because they said, hey, they just closed the runway at Gatwick, and we're trying to see if we get up now, we may just be able to sneak in before they close it. So everybody sit down, strap in. We're going to push back, start up the engines. And then the captain comes back on and said, we missed it, and we're going to be here for another hour and 10 minutes, sat here on the runway or on the taxiway. But then he says, I'm going to keep on the phone and see if there's anything that we can do and see if we can at least get down to the runway, get up in the air. You never know what'll happen. In the meantime, cockpit doors open. Come hang out.
Oh, nice.
Come sit come and have a chat. So there was this queue of people, kids and parents and dorks like me, who wanted, and everybody went up and they sat and the captain came up and sat and made all the announcements from the front of the airplane. It was like a little bit of a party atmosphere. Everybody was happy. They did a like a water run. I think we ended up being like 40 minutes before we got up in the air. No one grumbled. No one unhappy. He said, thanks so much, everybody that came and had a chat. It's always wonderful to do that. That delay was completely out of their hands. That was an operational thing that wasn't anything to do with them. But they handled it with grace.
Yes, how you react.
Dignity. Yeah,
exactly.
It was just night and day.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I was impressed, and EasyJet have kind of won me back on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I flew EasyJet to Corsica, and it was a wonderful experience. I went like it was one of these super early morning flight No, I arrived at the airport at 5:10. I think they're because I didn't know. We're talking here. It seems a lifetime ago with all the chaos, but the chaos was starting. We're talking about 3-4 weeks ago, whatever. And so I went like the first train 4:30 in the morning to arrive at 5:10. There were also more limited trains at that point, anyway. And it wasn't full, as you mentioned. I had pre-bought. The EasyJet doesn't offer a fast track so they were at South Terminal, so it's a bit odd for EasyJet to be in the South Terminal because, as you said, they're all Fortress North. But I enjoyed the South Terminal, and especially you arrive at the South Terminal, you don't need to take that extra train to get to the North, or you're faster there. There was not a lot. It was not a lot of people, but I had pre-bought the. You can buy, I think it was £5 or 10. I don't remember the fast track security.
Yeah, it's 5. It's
I was like, I never know. I'm hearing all these stories. If I can get at least a little bit faster, I don't not miss my flight. But it ended up being actually fantastic, and the terminal was buzzing, so it was not like empty or whatever. But no, the massive crazy queues. Was it because it was one of the first flights to leave? I don't know. Of course, Wetherspoons. I think I mentioned that in a previous show. Wetherspoons was full of people having beers. I went to the Pret actually just next door to have just a coffee.
So you didn't. It wasn't anything like what I described.
No, there were queues, but not to like a busy day. Yeah, nothing that out of the ordinary for a busy day at Gatwick. So I was probably pre the wave of chaos that has started. Now, it was not the holidays, no kids' holidays. So, of course, that also influences the number of people that appear at Gatwick, which is a very leisure, especially now that most of the big ones are not flying there. It's a very leisure airport for leisure destinations. Yeah. It was really funny because the flights, so the people say that the season Bastia, so Corsica, starts in mid-June, and I was going for that wedding, as I told you guys. Like it was just before that, meaning that it was a 320. Was it a Neo? I forget. EasyJet, and it was maybe 50 people in, so it was really empty.
Wow.
Lots of empty seats. Reduced crew, so maybe that helped because they didn't have to. Because again, that ratio passenger crew. They actually, to the point they had to ask us not to move from our seats because of the load, where the seats were chosen before to balance the aircraft. So they were saying at the start, because you see all these free seats, you're like, oh, I'm going to get a row for myself. They're like, please wait, not now, because we need to balance the aircraft for departure. It was a really. Honestly, I mean, you guys know I've always enjoyed EasyJet. I had like my 6 hours delays in the past. I'm not saying here it's always perfect, but it was really, honestly, it worked. The only thing I remember, it was really cold in the aircraft, and I was like, we're starting to talk about the crisis, the energy crisis. It was like, did you not pay your bills, or is it too expensive? So you left just a window open for ventilation. It was like super cold, but whatever. I like cold, so it was really fine. And arriving in Bastia, the one thing that was now is changing, and we're seeing more and more countries, as expected, dropping the COVID paperwork, even though we're back in some kind of small wave. So I still had to, because we're not in the EU, I still had to, fill out the EU passenger locator form. That they didn't care. They didn't. They just simply didn't care. So you entered it. Although I had to technically prove my status, vaccination status, and everything, they did not care. Is it because it was a small airport? On the way out, interestingly, they did ask me for it, which is not because the UK doesn't care. Actually, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I think even the guy. So it was really funny because probably the guy at the immigration exit from back to London was expecting, obviously, to have Brits, and now they have to stamp your passport again if you are a British passport, because you have to calculate the 90 days. I think it's 90 days over 180 or something like that, right? So you cannot overstay your visa-free stay if you want, right? So I arrived with my Swiss passport, which we're not part of the EU, but we're part of Schengen, so we have agreements. So I don't have that limit. And the guy is like, he wants to stamp my passport, and I cannot tell him, no, you don't need to stamp. No, oh, hold on. He was looking for my entry stamp. I was like, I don't have one. He's like, how do you don't have one? I'm like, it's a Swiss passport. The guy was completely confused. I'm like, yes, I live in the UK, but it's a Swiss passport. I can stay as long as I want, work and do whatever I want in the EU. So you don't. Oh, okay, sir. And he ended up not. But he asked me for on my app the vaccination status. At that point, I said, you know what, whatever. Take a look at it because he doesn't need it. Maybe he just wanted to do something.
I don't envy those people having to understand the massive immigration matrix that is Europe.
It's what I wanted to say, because there's one thing. Look, I'm thinking, because I was not supposed to talk about that flight, but since we're talking,
I'm
looking at my notes.
It's also interesting to compare.
It was it's a very tiny airport, so there was like probably one Air Corsica when we left. Air Corsica 319. They probably fly to mainland France, and there was an ATR as well from Air Corsica, and that was pretty much it. I've not seen any other aircraft. I've seen ours, Easyjet, and that's it. Again, empty on the way back. Again, probably 50 people. The queue is tiny. It's really, the one thing that's fun is, and I get it, but because we're going to a French destination, that happened on both flights, during the safety demo, because they expect French people, they play the track of the safety demo. And as you know, French is my first language, so I understand French. The only thing is that they play it, but they do not act upon it. So it's like, here's how you close your seatbelt. But they don't do it. They actually wait for the track to finish with all the... Now the crew is showing you the lights in case of emergency. They don't do that. They just chat away in the front. And then when the French track is finished, they come and they play the English track, and then they do it. And you're like, why did you do it in French? I mean, maybe, I don't know, is it regulation? Maybe somebody can tell us. But if you don't show what you're supposed to show, like, here's how you're supposed to put your, your emergency, what's the name there, the vest.
Your life vest,
And here's the light. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah, well, they don't. Anyway, so I guess that's the downside of not having like a video demo, because they don't. Again, a great flight. I had gotten on both ends, because you mentioned the flight, the app. So the app is fantastic. Honestly, it's very well done. I found I hadn't used EasyJet in 4 years, and I wish more airlines were bringing as much information. We're telling you delays, everything, gates,
where your inbound plane is.
Exactly, which in Europe we don't. You guys in the US have it, but we don't have that in Europe. When your airline tells you where you're inbound. I use Flighty for that, Flighty app. I really love that app, but otherwise there's no information. They do that, so you have like a wealth of information, and especially they know better than Flighty, because operations like EasyJet, you don't know which. It's not because it's coming back from Bastia that's going to be your flight. They crisscross Europe all the time, right? So super well done. But I had gotten a notification and an email amongst 25 other emails reminding me to take my COVID documentations that there would not be food available on the flight.
Yes, I got the same one.
And I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, they're spread. I mean, I didn't have queues, and so I said I bought a sandwich just in case. Actually, maybe it's the same for you. First, I think there's shortages of staff, which means a shortage of crew. But and the crew is less, so it doesn't maybe have time, because they make money out of selling you like overpriced sandwich. So it's really not great that they don't have. But what I've heard is that there's not enough staff to fill the aircraft on very short turns, so they'd rather not do it than actually having to do, and maybe having to potentially have to wait because there's no staff at that point to actually fill the aircraft. You still have the coffee and the tea and all the snacks, everything that's basically long-term storage is fine.
That's exactly what they said on both of my flights. They were a little bit more detailed on the flight back. They said that it's a supply chain issue at Gatwick. So there's not enough people to get the food onto the airplanes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
or even produce them. I mean, it's that's the crazy situation that we find ourselves in. It's not isolated to the airline industry.
Yeah, it's everything.
It's logistics, which is just attached to almost every facet of our lives. So even if you have enough cabin crew to distribute food, you don't have enough people to load the food or even make the food.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
And so I was, on the way back, they said the same thing. They said we have shortages at Gatwick, so we couldn't actually take any food on when we came here. But on the way in, I hadn't heard this, so I was like, because there were 50 people, like maybe it doesn't make sense for them to do it. But actually, they make money, so they still, because people still defaulted to coffee and tea and whatever, snacks and crisps and other stuff. So they still made some money, I guess. And then we'll move on because nothing to report. The flights were really great. Both of them I really enjoyed. I took speedy boarding, which nowadays includes so you probably had the same. So I didn't, because again, I hadn't taken them in like 3 or 4 years. There's the tickets. There are 2 types. If you take a normal ticket, you don't have the room to put your luggage on the overhead bin. You only have on the seat in front of you. If you want an overhead bin, you can pay for it. But if you take speedy boarding, which gives you extra leg room in the front, then you automatically get overhead, which makes sense for front one, by the way, because you could put but you get a bigger sized luggage, which is great, actually. It
was very interesting because you know how enthusiastic I am about getting on the airplane. I like to be like one of the first people on there.
Same.
Both my Easyjet flight, I was the last person, if not among the last 5 people to get on, because the product is the same. I didn't want to wait in the massive queues. I didn't need to pay for speedy boarding. There was no benefit for me to get on the plane early. However,
bins.
Yeah, because I went for a day. I got there at 10 a.m. and I flew back at 8 o'clock that night, and I just had my backpack. If I had an overhead bin, if I needed to put something in the overhead bin, I would have been pushing people out of the way, old ladies to get in the front of the queue, because they are rammed, absolutely rammed.
Which means probably that people are paying for them because now they have to pay for them. So I actually ended up. I was going to a wedding. So I said I needed, and I was officiating the wedding. And it was an all-white wedding. So I said, I'm gonna buy hold luggage. At that time, it was not risky. Nowadays, I would not buy any hold luggage because I canceled the stuff in Poland that I was telling you about a few episodes ago. So it's not happening. But in August, I'm supposed to fly, and I'm strongly hesitating because I'm flying long haul. I'm like, if I have to wait 12 hours or 5 days to get my luggage back on the way back, I mean, that was a wedding. That was different. I couldn't just put all the stuff, you need your shoes and whatever. And I was like, I don't want everything to be, but so I said, and there were no issues at that time reported of, a few. Now it's on your own risk. If you want to put something in the hold, your luggage might end up like in somewhere like in, I don't know, in Bogota or something, right? It's just
how does that work? How does the EasyJet system work though? How do they know if you've paid for?
So I paid at the very. So first of all, I paid as long as you're not at the airport, you can still upgrade. Basically, you can pay for a hold luggage. You can choose actually 15 kilos or 23 kilos. So if you don't need a lot, you can pay a little bit less, and which is not bad actually.
23 kilos is that helps.
Yeah, so 23 is the usual, but 15 if you have like not a lot of stuff, why not, right? And I saw on the Apple Wallet boarding pass, there were 2 little, above the QR code, there were 2 little signs. I don't know what they mean. Maybe it's one is speedy boarding and one is hold luggage. I couldn't really make out one seems to be a little human. The other I forgot, and I don't think I have it here in front of me. Of course, their systems know. Because when sorry guys, we're talking only EasyJet right now. When you get to Gatwick, you get to the auto tag system. So you basically arrive, you queue, and you put your own. So you scan your passport or put your boarding number, I think, whatever, and it gives you the tag which you put on your own luggage, which is actually weighted in front of you, and then it goes on the belt by itself. There's no someone. Great. I'm saying that it works well. But actually, they have to have 4 staff because most people just don't know how to do it or make a mistake and take too much time to do it. So at the end of the day, you're wondering, is that really useful not to have desks? Because they still have to hire people to do it. People are still not used to tag your own luggage and put the little barcode at the right point, and then then wrap the stuff around. So they were, yeah. So I guess that's how they know. But the boarding pass probably tells a bit more. I don't know.
But also, like, and I guess that's the thing I'm thinking about is when you board the airplane, are they looking at what you have, and if it's tagged?
You mean, yeah. I guess I've seen, so in London, again, this flight, 50 people, maybe they couldn't care less. I've rarely remembered, out of many times flying EasyJet, mostly from Gatwick for me, because I live south of the river, they never were that harsh. However, I remember EasyJet in
Madrid, they were, yeah.
But also once in Valencia, actually, because Valencia was when I flew with EasyJet. I had a 5-hour delay because of an operational issue. The flight didn't come, whatever. They were so harsh. The guys the guy had a tape measure, and it was going to it was a bit rude as well. It was going to every single bag. And I had one of these bags that is not a square, so it's hard to kind of, is it within the limits or not? And I was like, oh my God. So it depends. I guess your mileage may vary. It depends maybe on the load of the flights and the culture of the airport you're flying from, I guess, or something. Because in the UK and Gatwick, I never had, I've never seen, because usually my luggage is within regulations, whatever. But I've never seen tensions because of this. Yeah. Whereas in Spain, in Italy, I've seen that all the time. People arguing about the size of the luggage, are the wheels part of the luggage or not, and blah, blah, blah. It's just but yeah, so... But those were fantastic flights. Gatwick was working really well on the way back. Gatwick is... I would say... I'll do Pakistan another time, but that was my second time. I bought an Apple AirTag. And I put it in my whole luggage. So I did that for Pakistan, and I did that mostly because it's fun. Now I'll say, having done that, I'm not sure actually I like it. Oh. Because at the beginning I was like, yeah, I can track my luggage, which if it's chaos like it is right now, you could maybe see where the luggage actually is, and not what the airline tells you where it is. Like, oh, it's still in, let's say, Corsica or something. But... during both my flights, I ended up having more anxiety because I was like, where's my luggage? I was trying, I shouldn't check too often. But, you're about to depart, and you're like, where's my luggage? And then sometimes it takes a little bit of time to kind of refresh. And I don't know. I think, is it not better to just okay, I'm giving it to the guy or to the woman at the start. Forget about it. Let's see what happens when I land. Instead of being always at my Doha connection, it was where is it? Oh, it's interesting. He's going there and there. So as a nav geek, it was fun, but I was a bit more anxious, I think.
I think I've read stories lately about people having the same situation where they've been told that the bag never arrived, but the AirTag is showing them it's just over there. I have put them in my my carry-on bag because I know that I'll set it down somewhere or
that works well because it tells you immediately you left it behind.
Yeah, you get a notification on your phone that you left it behind. It's almost a little bit too vigilant, but I have one whenever I travel with my bike. I have one in the bike case.
Okay, that's clever.
I remember once going into San Francisco. I'm probably told the story where I couldn't find it. I had come from the U.S. It was a domestic flight. I'd come from Boston back to San Francisco, and my bike never appeared. It never appeared, never appeared. And I'm like, they're like, oh, we don't know where it is. I'm like, yeah, I'm telling you, it's on the other side of that wall. And then had come off the flight and gone into the international customs bit, which was on the other side of the wall. So somebody had to go and get it, but no one else could find it. So yeah, I think they're pretty useful.
I'm not saying I will keep using it. I was just feeling that I had a little bit more anxiety.
There were some is it Delta that have it built in?
Yes.
Maybe some of the American airlines.
They do tell you where it is. Yes. I don't know how accurate it is, but they do. I guess they track every time the barcode goes through some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
why wouldn't you? It's a good idea.
Actually, Qatar, again, it's not today's story, but Qatar was sending me a text and a notification. your luggage has been boarded to the flight, then your luggage has been transferred to the other. So it's very reassuring. I guess that's enough. I don't need to know. I mean, although it was fun to see where it stands, because, I had one of these 12-hour layover. So I was like, where does it stay? Where does it stay? So it kind of moves around a bit at the beginning. I guess they put in like some longer holding pattern, and then it comes back. It's fun to see, to be honest.
It is.
The one last thing about, because, okay, I want to say it because it's fun, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm mocking, but I am a little bit, because on the way back with Easyjet, we are taxiing, then we're at the gate, and I see again in 1F at that point, I see both of the flight attendant look at each other. Where did we fly from today? And I guess because they need to tell, when they open the door, they need to tell the dispatcher. And they're like, oh, yeah, France. And they say, oh, yeah, Corsica. And then they try to say Bastia, and they couldn't say it. How do you say Bastia? And I wanted to intervene. It's like, no, Bastia, that's enough. And they were like, for 30 seconds, until then, that's good. I'm like, okay, what? The dispatcher opens the door. They open the door. The dispatcher's like, where you come from? And they look at each other and said, Corsica, where is that? Is that Italy or France? And I'm laughing at that point. I'm like, and the dispatcher is, and I'm, because I'm at that point, I'm right behind, ready to exit. And the dispatcher looks at me and says, is that Italy or is it France? I was like, it's France, but it's disputed. So anyway, let's go to a little bit. We have a little bit of time to what people sent us. Dan,
very interested.
You met Dan Gare said, my own average Vueling performance is 7 hours delay with 2 crew changes.
Jeez.
Fairly safe to say I won't be using again. I get it. I get it. I get it. We receive so many. I will say I will not mention too many first, because it's not fun to talk about chaos all the time, but also because we want to go to some news about the chaos itself. But one I liked, it was from Arlie Wheeler, ACW3rd on Instagram. The reason I liked it is because I like his philosophy. So he was in Amsterdam. He had a direct flight home. I don't know where home is. I know it's in the US. Is it Ohio, man? I don't know. Arlie, you have to tell me where is home. But anyway, it was in Europe, so Amsterdam, which we know had a lot of chaos. And the route that he was given, because his flight was canceled, it was a reroute to Manchester, then to JFK. So as you know, Manchester is also having issues. So it was like going from Amsterdam with chaos to Manchester with chaos.
And into the fire.
So Amsterdam, he had security lines out the door that took almost 3 hours. 3 hours. He said the business class was slightly better, actually. And then in Manchester, he was put on Virgin Atlantic. And he says, yikes, takeoff 3 hours late, lost my Rimowa Monster Aluminum, tried 4 different ways to talk to a human about it, but I couldn't. Automated responses only via WhatsApp, SMS, email, Twitter. 2 weeks later, got a human. The suitcase returned the next day, damaged. But then, and that's a good part, he says, I was mad for a couple of days, then I realized that after being cooped up for 2 years like everyone else, I got to visit London and Amsterdam with my cool suitcase and fly business class on some great airline. And for him, it was only his 3rd business class experience. And just be a traveler again. A person couldn't have picked 2 worst airports on earth to fly through that week. But, I still consider these are champagne problems. I still consider myself lucky. That's exactly that, man. I mean, at the end of the day, and I had the same discussion with Elizabeth, you know her, I don't forget now, and our Twitter handle, because she changed it. One of our listeners, yes, it's chaotic, but it's nice to remember that we're still lucky to being able to do it.
Yeah.
That we don't have to stay home. One thing he added, however, about because I love the way he described it about Manchester, like that place is awful, and I received let's just say a spirited frisking pat down by a security lady who I may now be dating. I'm not sure. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, welcome to Manchester, man. Alexandra at AviAlex, also Amsterdam. Amsterdam was the trend. A lot of people mention Amsterdam having issues. She sent me a picture of the line outside of the airport. It was more than 5 hours to get there.
5 hours?
5 hours to enter. She said, we ended up just saying F you, and we took a train the next day. I've never seen anything like this before. And then, same Alexandra tells me she's in Malmö, so she's in Sweden, and all the trains were canceled when she was landing. So basically, it's everywhere. It's madness. I don't know what to tell you, man. I've heard that Norway. Who was it? Michael Leppa. That says there's strikes in Norway. If you have strikes in Norway, we never hear about strikes in Norway. Honestly, there might be strikes everywhere in the world. There's no way.
I mean, and maybe you're coming on to this, but SAS have filed for bankruptcy because they're is it their Norwegian or their Swedish Pilots Association?
Yeah, no, there's industrial action. Is it the Swedish? I don't know. There's a massive industrial action, and they said I think would rather restructure than actually have to go through. So they only went to Chapter 11 in the US. So it's US based operations are being restructured. I don't know what's going on in Europe. I guess. I don't know, but
I mean, financially, who knows? But operationally, that's got to be some disruptions ahead. What a strange time to be alive.
Yeah, so Easyjet has decided to cancel, since we were talking about it, 11,000 flights this summer. Actually, I've heard, and that's the story. I don't know if you heard about this, because it didn't happen on my flight. Probably hasn't happened on yours, but because of they are removing seats from some aircraft.
So they are doing that.
That's what I hear, guys. If anybody works at Easyjet, I've heard that from multiple sources, but I don't know because I've not seen it with my own eyes, and I cannot verify that, because that would mean, if you have less seats, you can have less crew flying the aircraft, and then it's just makes. I
mean, they've obviously done the maths and figured out that it's worth it
doing. Yeah, I know. And have you seen the Easyjet? The chief operating officer just left as well.
Yes, just quit. He was ex-Ryanair, wasn't he?
Well, yeah.
Ex-Ryanair
were saying that they were so amazing and well-run. Well, they're going on strikes in Spain, Belgium, France, Italy, Portugal. So there you go. Volatea is going on strike in Italy, in Crewlink, which I had never heard about. Apparently, it's Italian also outlet. Malta Air, SAS, as we just mentioned. Norway, so we just said there's rumor of strikes in Switzerland as well, which never happened. And the BA strike. So the BA strike could be partially off. We don't know. We heard that yesterday.
Yeah, there was a sprinkle of that.
Because, of course, all these strikes are timed with the start of the school holiday. Which, so 16,000 workers at BA were supposed to go on strike. And 700 check-in staff were also planning to walk out. And apparently as well, that was for later this July, the aviation fuel services at Heathrow are going on strike for 3 days. Usually strikes affect short haul. Long haul are prioritized. But if you have aviation fuel services, you are now refueling long haul flights. I don't know how they leave Heathrow.
That will bring the whole thing to its knees.
Yeah, they'll probably actually negotiate. There's no way you can not having any. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not the full operation. Maybe they'll have like a skeletal operation, but I don't know, man. It's just all that said, what is interesting is that what I didn't know, maybe you knew, is that you remember during COVID there was these airlines have to keep flying the slots to keep them. And during COVID, there were a rule. They said, you don't have to do it anymore because otherwise, obviously, all the airlines would have lost their slots and would have never worked. They reinstated that rule, at least in the UK. I don't know the situation in other countries. And Heathrow, because they realized the chaos is just above everything, they just relaxed that rule. They said, okay, fine, you don't have to fly your slots. If you don't fly them, you will not lose them. And exactly the same days, probably they negotiated that. That's when BA announced that they are canceling God knows how many more flights that they were already canceling. I think they already had like 200 or 300. I think they're like in the thousands now. That will affect more than 100,000 travelers during the summer. But that's probably because they probably knew they couldn't do it, but they were afraid that if they were to announce the cancellation, they would lose the slots. So there's a bit of a... But yeah, I hope you're not going to get affected, man. I mean, you're going to the US.
I don't think so. I fly on Monday, and I think that we
whom?
touch with BA.
Where do you fly to this time? San
Jose.
You say that
which I haven't done, and that one is a little riskier. So far, it's fine, and I think if it had been a planned cancellation, we would have already been told because it's within 7 days. Whether I come back ever is a different question, but
yeah, but you'd be happy because I know that you've never liked these passenger duty, whatever, and all the taxes. I think wasn't Heathrow ordered to cut their charges, passenger charges?
Yeah, and they were astronomical.
Yeah, they're super high. But so I don't know it's good news for the price of the tickets. I don't know if it's good news for Heathrow, but I have no idea, man.
Well, they're not getting their third runway, so they've got a little bit of money to play with.
Is it cancelled? Do you think it's
I think it's indefinite hiatus is the euphemism. But Gatwick are in the middle of a 6-week consultation on a second runway at the moment, right?
The
right
one
now.
The existing one, the one that is, or another one?
No, there'd be another one. I think it would be on the north side of the airfield.
Okay. Yeah, because the existing one is too close. They cannot. I mean, they're using both, but they cannot use them both at the same time.
No, it's not like San Francisco, which even then is a little bit dicey sometimes.
Okay. Talking about dicey, it's so dicey at Heathrow that even Iberia has decided not to contract BA for ground handling anymore. So when you have your own cousins of IAG that are basically stabbing you in the back, it means it must be really bad. I
see that BA have just hired the former COO and MD of KLM.
I don't know I didn't know that, but I don't know what to think about it. I mean, KLM is really efficiently run, but to the cost of not being as premium as others. I mean, their business class. I mean, now they're changing the business class. They have better seats, but it's not, to me, it's not Air France. It's not BA. I'm not even talking about the Asian ones, right? So, and BA really wants to keep being premium. I don't know, man.
If that role is purely on dispatch reliability and scheduling and all of that, then it may be a genius move. But if it's, as you know, my first experience, and I think in Flyer Talk, in the BA section of Flyer Talk, people were like, they're not exactly great themselves, and they don't have a great relationship with the unions, which a COO would be responsible for, partially responsible for. So who knows? Who knows?
I mean, there's some good signs because, I mean, we've heard that the government finally here, I mean, is there a government? But, has implemented rules to fast track all the security, so the terror checks, so anti-terror checks, and the security for working at airports. And they are actually more than halving the process or something. So I think over time it will lead to probably a bit more people getting back into being able to work at airports. Maybe not this summer. I don't know how fast they can actually solve these bottlenecks. I guess that by the end of the summer, because there'll be less people traveling, because schools will be back again. I said that in the previous episode. It will be a little bit better, but I don't know. It's funny how some airline bosses are questioning why chefs or ballet dancer have let's call it a Brexit retrieval, so they can get people from abroad, but themselves cannot. As soon as I mentioned Brexit, I mean, Michael O'Leary said it's the biggest disaster in British aviation history. I don't know if he's right or not, but would you consider, Alex? Let's pretend that on Monday you learn that it's a huge mess as baggage handling, and there's a risk that you don't get your luggage with you. Would you consider shipping it?
Yeah. Yes. In fact, I've used services like that very recently.
Okay. Yeah. Because I've heard a lot of acquaintances of mine are thinking about, even for long haul, say, I don't want to bother with it. I know it's going to be there at my destination. And now you have like shipments I deliver to your hotel and everything. So why not?
Yeah. When Megan moved over here, she brought some of her stuff, and we used a service, door-to-door service, and it was great. It showed up exactly when it was supposed to. It wasn't that expensive. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've never done it, but I would maybe depending on the travel I'm supposed to do. It's not inked or anything, but I'm going back to Pakistan.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, might be going back to Pakistan. Will I trust actually getting my luggage shipped to Pakistan? I'm not sure. And I don't say that, guys, in Pakistan, you'll see, I'll do an episode about Pakistan, which will be very nice towards you, but that, I'm not sure. I've been talking about faraway places, South Africa. Comair is dead.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well,
what a strange environment, aviation environment South Africa is.
Yeah.
My dad could talk about it for hours, but it's, South African Airways is a financial and logistical disaster. And then Comair, which owned and operated Kulula as well, which were two of the big domestic and short haul airlines. I've experienced both of them. They're both fine. Evaporated.
That you would.
Yeah, there'd be nothing to write home about. It was always weird to see a 737 in BA colors, in modern BA colors, but it was cool because they were what do they call them? A franchisee of BA.
Yep, exactly. It's a franchise agreement, exactly. So that's probably dead because we heard that Comair was entering some kind of Chapter 11, the equivalent in South Africa. But now they entered liquidation, which means it's over.
That's it. And they kept having fines by their civil aviation authority for safety issues and all manner of both of them, Kulula and Comair. And now they're done for. And so it's Safair, right? That's left.
Safair.
And South African Airways and a subsidiary of South African Airways as well. Cobus is the guy.
Yeah, Cobus. I was about to say Cobus. Now that you're back from your huge travel around Europe, I'm so jealous. And so please tell us what's the situation with airlines in South Africa, because
I think it's SAA Airlink is the subsidiary, which is I think they use like ERJs and stuff like that. But the choice, let alone the availability in South Africa, has gone down dramatically.
And I don't think we'll ever see again, because I don't see BA going into any other type of JV franchise with anyone. We'll not see the colors of BA in South Africa anymore. I mean, I've not seen them personally. You have, but BA has, first of all, they have other problems to solve before trying to find a new franchise or system.
Whether or not IAG as a group invest in something down there is another matter. But
maybe. Even
then, who knows? Who'd want to run an airline right now?
I don't know. Jeez, well, there's always a few crazy people that always try.
That's true. So, I think you have to be crazy to run an airline.
The word that the travel industry doesn't want to say because they don't want to jinx it is COVID. I mean, we're not by far not in March 2020. And even I hesitate to say it because. Not because I'm afraid of saying it, but every time I mentioned on this show, I'm going to get some actual hate mail of like, it's BS, whatever. Now, there is a wave clearly in Europe. It's not killing thousands or whatever. So we're not here, do not mistake. We're not in March 2020, not even 2021. However, it's affecting because not a lot of airlines want to say it, but Lufthansa has come out and said that they are canceling flights because of infections at staff that has worsened the absenteeism. Again, if you're just out of commission for 3 days when you have already staff shortages, or 5 days, whatever that is, it's making things worse. And Aer Lingus is having the same issue. I know the airlines don't want to use that word because they're like, this is in the past. We don't want to forget about it. It's not happening, but we know it's happening. Yeah. So let's see where that goes. I don't think it's going to be dramatic, but let's not pretend it's not there either.
No, and I think, that was weird. I couldn't hear you for a second, but it's not the deadliness, as you said, of the March 2020 situation. It's just the impact of having people who are testing positive and don't want to leave the house or just feeling like hot garbage.
Yeah, hot garbage. I mean, I have so many friends of mine who have it. I had it very light. And friends of mine, this morning, a friend of mine, she's 28 in Brussels, and she's like bedridden. Again, it's not dangerous, but you're not at work or not function. You don't function for a few days. Alex is having, I think he's maybe run out of battery with his AirPod on his left here, or right here. I don't know which direction
the camera is. Weird. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah.
So he couldn't.
Going back to the cans.
He's back.
Friggin'
back for the last 20 minutes.
Friggin' technology.
Because I have a hard whilst he's actually doing the levels on his headphones, I have a hard stop because my fiber engineer
you're
at 2 p.m. will cut the line off or something.
What was happening is that it was like, zzz, and then you would just disappear into the ether.
Oh, so are they? No, they haven't cut my line yet. It's I think I have 22 minutes before they do. We need to or something like that. I think they will ring the door before they do, because I told them at 2 p.m. you can. Because again, they were supposed to do it all day, and then I said, I have something to record. I need my fiber. Can you come after? And after 2, and I tipped them, so they went for lunch. So this is how I operate. So it's still there. Let's see. It's not dramatic. It is for certain people. It is more, but it's a big bother. Even me, I was not out of commission, but I was slower, and then I was fatigued for 2-3 weeks. I know it's not a big deal compared to what it was in other illnesses. It is still in a time of staff shortages. It's not good news. Let's hope it doesn't get worse than this. And especially for those who kept saying it's seasonal. I didn't know there were 25 seasons in a year, because it's always a new season randomly. Anyway.
Armchair epidemiologists.
And yeah, exactly, armchair epidemiologists. The airlines also, I think... Did we mention last time? Because a friend of mine told me that after the episode, I don't forget, was it Paolo? I forgot who told me that they were the airlines are reducing training requirements for pilots and training requirements for staff because they don't have enough people to train them, and because they still want to fast track them. So basically, there's a whole domino effect here. Or they want people. And I get it, right? It's like finding that right balance. I'm not saying I'm happy when I hear about reducing training requirements. I'm not sure it's something I want to hear. But at the same time, they have maybe no choice. I don't know.
And I don't know if we're able to talk about it, but we mentioned in the last episode about some of those U.S. airlines switching the FAA part under which they operate, so they can do exactly what you're just describing. And LA Flyer messaged us privately, which is why I'm hesitant to bring up the exact details, but he basically confirmed what we were saying, that some airlines, and it's perfectly legal, it's about number of passengers and size of airplanes and things like that, but that a lot of the big airlines are looking at this model that airlines like Jet Suite X, we were just referred to themselves now as JSX, are using. So I don't think there's any safety implications. The U.S. is the safest aviation market statistically in the world, still behind or just ahead of China and the EU. So I don't think there's any safety implications. It's just an interesting way of operating.
Yeah, of course. It is. No, it is. And yeah, because the situation in the US, I think, was it June or May? I think Delta had canceled more flights that they had canceled in the entirety of 2019 or something. So it's happening in the US as well.
Gosh, yeah, you still see the pictures. And
slight different dynamics in the US that we have here. Canada seems closer than the dynamic that we have in Europe. We've heard horror stories in Canada with luggages, staying at airports for like 2 weeks and not being delivered, or flights never taking off, and people being stranded on runways. So it seems the stories I've heard in Canada, guys, I know I have not been to Canada, are very similar to Europe. The ones in the US, probably because it's a single market and very big, it's a bit different. Because probably also airlines, there's less airlines, there's been more consolidation, so there's maybe more buffer into the system a bit, but it's still a mess. Honestly, and the TSA, I think, was it the other day, like a week ago, not even a few days ago, they announced the number of people they screen per day, and they said for the first time, I think it was July 1st. It was exactly a week ago. They had screened almost the same number of people as on February 2020, so just before the start of the pandemic. So basically, in terms of the number of passengers in the airports, it's the same, but there's all the issues of staff shortages and etc. So it's not great, which is not surprising that we have price increases.
And these are macroeconomic issues at play as well. So it's not like they're going to be solved overnight either. They're global macroeconomic causes that you can't. If you want,
I'll spend a minute too. Okay, let me put my more professional hat, because there's a big shift that you mentioned here that nobody wants to mention, or maybe people don't see. We're making less babies. right? And so the US is a bit different because it's more of an immigration market than Europe. But we're making less. So in Germany, to take a big example in Europe, because it's the largest country in Europe, they were like in the 60s, people were doing twice the amount of babies or children that they are doing now. So these people that have worked all their lives are going into retirement. So they're disappearing from the workforce. And there's half people coming for the same jobs. And you and me, and maybe many of the people listening, I don't know because I don't have a breakdown, we're white collars in a way. So we work in front of computers. We could work from home when COVID happened. There was a lot of stuff that is more comfortable for us. And we've seen all these trends of work-life balance and companies fighting for talent and all this stuff that we've been talking, not on this podcast, but if you're a part of that type of workforce, that you basically, if you're a talent, the companies are making every effort possible to make you happy because they want to retain you. Yeah. The thing is that is starting to show at the blue collar level. So the people that are doing the baggage handling and all this, it's not only that during COVID, they decided, because they were laid off, they decided to go to work for Amazon at fulfillment centers, and now they don't want to come back because maybe at Amazon they don't have to work under the rain in the middle of the night, and they can do basically the same amount of money. It's simply that overall, and this is why, coming to your point, it won't get solved overnight, there's not enough people. There won't be enough people to actually, unless we open the gates to immigration, which is another debate that we know right now in Europe is not a fun debate to be had in the US either, in all the, let's say, Western countries. There's not enough people. And so not only you can see the reactions of old companies. So let's say a Swissport, I don't know them. So it's a theoretical example. It used to be that if you and me, Alex, were like baggage handlers at Swissport and we don't show up on time 3 days in a row, we're fired. And that's it. And there's going to be 200 other guys or women wanted to take the job because there was always enough people. Now they're starting to have to act as if Paul and Alex, the baggage handlers, are important employees that they actually have to care about and to have to pay for. And so the economics of paying the lowest possible for baggage handling, I took that example, but there's many others in the airline industry, in other industries, automaking and whatever, all the factories you can think of. Well, will have to undergo a very similar change that happened to white collars, because they will need to attract them and to keep them. Whereas, so the power dynamics between the owners, and I took Swissport is maybe unfair because I don't know their situation. So guys at Swissport, I love you. The owners at Swissport used to maybe have a dynamic of like, yeah, we decide all the rules. If you're not happy, leave. Whereas now they're like, shit, we need people. There's staff shortages. Well, you're not going to come if we don't pay you not enough. And so the entire economics of flying might also change. So the price increase is not temporary because of staff shortages post-COVID because of the restart of the industry. It's also absolutely fundamental in how our economies work. I don't think we'll get out of this the same way. We might actually have to pay everything more because they won't be able to hire. I think a price, there was an Atlantic article the other day. I don't have it in front of me when I want to talk about it, but I think a baggage handler at Milwaukee Airport makes $19 an hour, and fulfillment center, Amazon fulfillment center, also in the area, makes 50 cents more or something. So already that's what I mentioned earlier. There's a tension, but if there's not enough people, at some point these prices will have to. I mean, that's how economics works. I mean, if you don't find someone, you need to pay them to come, right? Yeah, or you can automate your way out. To a certain extent, that will happen, and we're seeing. But at some point, I think this is the big thing, the big shift. Sorry, because it's I'm taking a bit more professor hat when I talk.
No, I think it's a very important conversation.
It's a huge transition that we are undergoing, and I don't know. Maybe no more super low cost workers. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. But there's clearly. Companies are currently, forget COVID, losing, and blue collars I'm talking, they're losing twice as many people as there are new joiners in the market. And that's a reality, COVID or not, pandemic or not, airlines or not. And so what do? I don't know what we're going to do, right? So I'm going to close this parenthesis, but I think it's going to go on for much longer than we think.
Oh, me too. Me too. Years.
Than we think. So sorry for that, guys. It was, but I think price will increase. Actually, was it O'Leary that said? He said currently, I don't know if it's an average or median price of 40 euros of a ticket. And he sees that going to 60 over the next 5 years just because of these fundamental changes. And yeah, I mean, it's still affordable, but it's still a massive, some increase, right? I don't know. And I remember I told you, I sent you the article that Emirates was expecting a price rise this summer of 80%.
80%, unbelievable.
Because there's not seats are limited. There's no supply, so people want to travel. So it's crazy. I don't want to travel this summer. I'm going to maybe for work, but I don't want to.
What a strange time.
Look, let's close this for the last 10 minutes. Instead of going, I wanted to talk about Lufthansa because Lufthansa lost their 5-star status at Skytrax. But I think it depends a bit longer of a discussion because, of course, were there ever a 5-star? I don't know. So I will do that next time. You'll probably be in the US, and we'll see when next time is. So let's finish with some news about aircraft because it's interesting. Since I was talking about Dubai, you said yourself, and I checked the story since, and you repeated it since, that Tim Clark wants a bigger Airbus. There was an air show in Doha or something. I forgot the name of the air show. And he just said that basically he wants he says the 350-1000 is not big enough. He wants a big one. So I'm wondering, should Airbus come up with A390 with 2 engines or something? Or like I don't know, because where are they going to go? Like they're going to do a A350-2000? Is that even feasible? I don't know.
It's going to be something that competes with the 777X, isn't it?
Whenever it comes out, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so maybe he wants a A377. So basically it's a tiny, smaller A380, but with 2 engines. Figure it out, Airbus, right? So everybody, when we mentioned the 380 last time, everybody sent us messages about 380 is back, 380 is back. It is back, actually. You can fly it. Where is it? I had written down a few. BA, of course, Emirates, of course, but in Qatar, as I said, Lufthansa. They'll be out of Munich, not Frankfurt. I'm very happy. Korean will be flying the 380 to Tokyo. Do they know something we don't?
That's interesting.
I think the Japanese are able to travel without restrictions if you're a resident. So probably when I was living there, Seoul is a very popular destination. So you just go for the weekend.
Seoul, maybe Jeju, yeah.
Asiana is also putting the 380 back, but I didn't realize, weren't Asiana and Korean merging?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought that was a done deal.
Yeah, me too. So I'm
or are they operating as separate for a little bit? I don't. That's weird.
I don't know, but anyway, so it's back. The Steve Tao at Mileage Runner on Twitter asked us a question. So I want to hear your answer, Alex. Given the choice, would you fly BA's A380 lie flat cots or the 777 Club suites? Sorry,
Club suite every single time.
Really?
Are we talking about the yin and
the old yin yang?
I hate those things. I hate those things.
So for you, would be more the matter of the seat than the aircraft. You would not go out or you wait to fly the 380.
No, not anymore. I love the 777. I think it's a great airplane. I think the only benefit to the old yin and yang, I can't think of one. I can't think of one. I really like the Club Suites. I think it's a very good product.
Yeah, it's a good product. I said as a reply cheekily that I would fly the 350 Club Suites, but that was not his question, obviously, so I cannot. Look, Steve, I will say, so I love the 380, and I will still try to get out of my way to fly the 380. But I agree with Alex, this seat is not great. However, and I've done it, remember when I flew Hong Kong to London, we did Hack Horizon, that hackathon in the air that I did like in 2017. God, time flies. There's 59K, that was my seat, but I think on the other side probably is 59A, and I think there's also 53. Look at the seat map. There are these seats that are, so you're looking backwards, if that doesn't bother you. But because they are against the bulkhead wall of before the next section, you have your own aisle access, which you don't have to go over the feet of someone else. So you still have that weird window in between, and you look at your fellow passenger, which Alex is shaking his head. But I would say that I would consider this if I want really to fly the 380 with BA, in your question, Steve. Because and there's also one in the lower deck, but I will always favor the upper deck on the 380 for some reason. I prefer quieter, and they also have like these big fat storage units.
With the curve of the fuselage.
Cool. But yeah, so Steve, that's my answer. Probably if you were to choose a 380, I don't know if it's an actual flight he's looking into. 59, I think 53, at the very end. So both windows, and there's a row in below. Just look it up when you have your own. But Alex is right. Overall, the club suites is better.
So it's a good product. I've only experienced it twice now, but who knows if I'll ever get to do it again. But we'll see.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
Let's be optimistic and say
yes. Exactly. Let's be optimistic. What else? Let's do all these. I had written a few more notes, but I want to finish with what could we say as a story for the end? Yeah. Have you read? You probably read about it. The hit and run of Alitalia, ITA at JFK.
Yeah, I listened to the air traffic control audio. There's a phenomenal channel on YouTube that does reconstructions. They use the radar graphics, and then they use the it's called Real ATC. There's a few. Oh no, VAS Aviation, VAS Aviation, and they did it. It's super interesting.
So I think I think both were so the ITA, because that was an ITA cargo, so it's not passenger. Probably they were parked to each other. Maybe you know better than me, but I know that I've heard the ATC, and it says I've written this down. This is Air France 008. We are on stand 9, and there was an Alitalia passing behind us that hit our aircraft. It's so you can tell them not to take off. Then I don't know what happens, because he's probably babbling away, because the ITA Alitalia flight ends up actually taking off. And that's the other thing I've wrote. For New York Tower is talking to ITA, says, another aircraft on the ground currently, Air France, said you hit them or something of that nature while you were taxiing. Did you experience any damage to the aircraft? And the ITA captain, I guess, answered, negative, sir. And that was it. Not bothered. They flew to Rome. And oops, when they landed, they actually had damage.
Yeah. People were quite critical of the New York air traffic controller for not fully understanding and not taking this seriously and stopping the rollout. But yeah, what a weird situation.
Yeah, Well, I love the fact that a lot of people will call it a hit and run, because it's it's very Italian. Having sorry guys, sorry my friends from Italy. Having driven in Naples, so if you've never done it, Alex, you do it. I mean, it's impossible not to have scratches on your car, because it's like it's a fight to the death. Get in front of when there's like a red light, which don't mean anything because everybody runs them, but on the front line, which is like a Formula One pole position, and there's maybe 3 lines, there's like 22 cars because everybody wants to go first, and you're like, what am I doing here? And then it's fantastic. So probably that's what the captain of that ITA flight is probably from Naples. Oh my God, a lot of cliches, not politically correct. People will hate me for saying that. To finish, what did you think of Valencia Airport? Can you tell us a few words? That will be the airport of the day, because why not?
Yeah, I can't remember if I described it in the last episode at all, but it's fine. It's like so many other Spanish airports. It's open and efficient and clean, not heavy on the amenities or anything like that. Big 2-story, if not 3-story windows overlooking the airfield, which of course I love. And I think maybe we did talk about this, because I talked about the abandoned 747.
Oh, that's been there since. Anyone actually reacted on that? Let me see in my notes. If keep talking, I'll take a second note if somebody talked about.
On the other side of the airfield, there's an abandoned 747-200 that's been sitting there since 2000.
Oh yeah, you mentioned with the bills. We mentioned that. Yeah,
yeah. So I always get a kick out of seeing that airplane and wanting to know how I can make it mine. But it's a good little airport, and what's lovely about it is that if you take off in the right direction, which I've landed and taken off in the same direction on every trip I've been there. You fly right alongside the city, and if you're on the left-hand side of the airplane, you get a beautiful view of the city. You go out over the ocean, turn left. This is if you're coming back to the UK. And fly along the coast with the city, and then over the Pyrenees. It's beautiful, a beautiful flight.
Great.
So that the airport is great. It's so close to the city. It's always a bonus. I think it's 20 minutes on the metro, 15 minutes in a cab. So it's a great little airport. We've never had to wait. I always seem to blag my way into the premium security line. I think Greg took me last time. Well, the previous time we were in business class, but there's a single lounge which caters to all of the
everyone,
all of the airlines and priority pass, and it's fine.
I haven't been forever, man. I don't half remember it. For some reason, for me, Valencia, and again, it was a really long time I've been. And I'm not talking about the airport, I'm talking about the city. I'm thinking Calatrava because of these the Science Museum or whatever it's called. Now you have the same guys in New York. You have the World Trade Center, metro station, subway station, whatever. It's similar style because that's the style. Or in Lisbon, you have the bridge. But I don't remember the airport at all. So meaning it's probably didn't strike me as something special.
Not good or not bad as well. So I think
exactly.
When you don't remember an airport, it's not actually a bad thing. But yeah, I liked it. It's one of those airports where it's utterly forgettable for all the right reasons, other than the abandoned 747, which is just strange.
Definition: forgettable for the right reasons.
Yeah,
I like that. We should use that more often for all these airports.
That's my Tinder bio.
Okay, one last comment from because you were talking about seven. It just triggered that memory. Noah Shearer at Noah F Shearer on Twitter said that Lufthansa. Since this is a teaser for next time. Next time I don't know what we're going to talk about. Pakistan at some point. Lufthansa, I want to talk about their 5-star becoming 4-star, but Lufthansa. Not to criticize them all the time. He's telling us, Noah Shearer, that Lufthansa is flying a 744 because he wanted to know how to fly a 744 from Boston, Frankfurt, and I guess the other way. Although some days they will sub it for the 748. So if you want a 744, that's a chance.
I still have not done a 748.
Yeah, but I've done both. I've done Lufthansa and... both. There's more than that, but the other, I think, is Chinese and Korean. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's midway. It's a more modern one, and I really enjoy it. But let's not kid ourselves. It's not a Dreamliner or a 350, but it's great. I wish there were more than these. But, I guess maybe we'll fall in love with the 777X. So, guys, to know about that, see you in 2028 for a visit of layovers when that aircraft's going to be. Okay, Alex. It's 2, so my fiber engineers will come knocking down my line, so I have to stop. Happy flying to the US. Are you? I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We're not sure if we're going to record while you're there because I also want you to enjoy your vacation. So let's see if we can make it happen or not.
Sure we can.
And guys, I hope we didn't have too much drift this time. I'll discover that. Oh, by the way, this might be released tomorrow, Saturday, the 9th, because of course I won't have fiber. I won't have internet to actually upload it. God knows for how long. So I might not be able to upload it today. So, again, thank you very much, Alex. The music, the end. Where is it? Every time I don't find it. Here it is. I really should rearrange the buttons to call these musics because they're completely random, so I never know which one is what.
That makes it more exciting.
I can play multiple at the same time. I could replay Genkan. I could replay the music from the start. Yeah, I'm happy that Lufthansa has lost his 5-star because it was a scandal they had.
I was going to say, I don't think they ever really were 5-star.
You know what? For us, it means we have to fly to Asia to fly a 5-star now.
That's fine with me once we can get in.
No one else. Guys, thank you very, very much. See you next time. Happy flying, Alex.
Safe travels, guys.
And there we go.